We just celebrated our 4th of July, our Independence Day in America. I know it has already been summer officially, but it is the unofficial kickoff. So now is the time for another horror list. 10 of the best horror movies to watch during the summer. I'll get it right. I think all of those apply. Now, in this list, I have a variety of different types of horror, but also while you'll recognize some of these names, okay, I'm not going to sit here and say these are horror movies you've never heard of before. I did keep off some of the obvious ones, some of the big ones. Friday the 13th isn't here. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is not here. Jaws isn't here to give you a little variety and some that maybe you don't know about, maybe you never discovered, or maybe you know the name but haven't seen, or you know the name but it's been a long time, and maybe now is the time to revisit. So let's kick it off with one that I think you will know all the way back to 1987 with The Lost Boys. The Lost Boys is just a cool movie. It has a cool horror vibe, right? And it's definitely got the summer vibe, the boardwalks, the beaches, the uh, late nights. I'll get it. The sense that, hey, anything could happen after the sun goes down. The sun goes down, things get a little dangerous. I think we've all heard variations of the phrase nothing good happens after midnight, nothing good happens at 2 a.m., whatever it might be. But it is a lot more than just nostalgia. You've got vampires, obviously, you've got action, you've got humor. It's got a cool 80s soundtrack. I don't know any honest person who doesn't like 80s music. Of course, we know it follows two brothers who moved to a small California coastal town. Maybe seems a little sleepy. Ideal place to spend the summer, but of course, we quickly find out that is not really the case. Cast is fantastic. The vampires themselves kind of helped redefine the genre a little bit. I think it was, if not the first, one of the first, or at least one of the first well-known vampire movies where we don't kind of get that old world gothic monster vibe from the vampires, right? These vampires they're cool. They're stylish. They're the bad boys type. They give the bad boys type of vibe that they're rebellious. They kind of give you all those things of, say, I don't know, the the guys in Greece, except maybe they're a little more rebellious, but that could also be because they've got that extra of being vampires. They're some of the most iconic horror villains of the 1980s. It's a fantastic movie visually. If you have not seen it before, or if you just haven't seen it in a long time, The Lost Boys is absolutely a horror movie to watch every single summer. Speaking of, moving on to the next one. Now, in a way, we're sticking with the 80s, but this is a movie from 2018, and that is Summer of 84. And for me, this is an easy, easy recommendation. This is one of those where I think a lot of people might have heard it when I mentioned the name, but didn't necessarily see it. I think it is absolutely worth your attention. All the ingredients of an 80s, nostalgic coming of age story, a la, Stand By Me, but it absolutely isn't that. Even though you've got the kids riding their bikes, hanging out with friends, trying to make the most of a summer break, all those things you got in the 80s when kids wandered off and parents didn't necessarily pay attention, and there was no internet, there was no cell phone and stuff. But of course, underneath all this, you've kind of got this like unsettling mystery that keeps you hooked from beginning to end. As I mentioned with the kids in the summer, it follows a group of teens. By the way, the cast is absolutely fantastic. Their chemistry is great. They begin to suspect that one of their neighbors might be connected to a series of disappearances. So, of course, it starts out with this innocent curiosity, slowly turns into something a lot more dangerous for these kids as they begin to dig deeper and deeper. As I mentioned, the chemistry between the cast members is great. Absolutely a slow burn. Visually, very much nails the 80s with, I think, outgoing over the top into like, oh, it's trying too hard. I don't know if you just heard that, but there was some thunder cracking as well. It just got a whole lot darker outside. Hopefully the video is okay because I thought it was cool. I was doing this in front of a window without any lights on. But anyway, slow Summer of 84, slow burn thriller. It definitely rewards patience if you're one of those that enjoys a good slow burn. a good slow build up. Absolutely worth the watch. Now, the next one I think a lot of people have heard, but you know what? This aged well. I think this is a fun horror movie, well worth watching, especially if you like monster horror movies, which I do. And sometimes you don't need something absolutely complicated. You just kind of want to sit back and you want to enjoy a good monster movie. And that is 1999's Lake Placid. I thought this is just a perfect easy watch, a perfect monster movie, a perfect movie to watch in the summer. You've got suspense, you've got humor, obviously, you've got creature feature thrills with this massive, uh-oh, crocodile. Oh my God. Yes, right? Crocodile, not alligator, crocodile. Oh man, should I pause and edit this out? But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a crocodile now that I think about it. But obviously, Quiet Lake in Maine, Lake Placid. Wait, or New York? Maine. Wait, what? Anyway, the story follows these experts and locals who are brought together. They're investigating a series of mysterious attacks. And of course, before they reel along, they're dealing with something they realize they're dealing with something far bigger, far hungrier than anyone ever expected. Now, one of the reasons I really enjoy Lake Placid, why it's been a fan favorite for me, is it just, as I mentioned right at the beginning, it never forgets to have fun. It's got a sharp sense of humor, it's got witty dialogue, it's got a great cast that clearly is enjoying what they're doing. It's got Bridget Fonda at that time when you thought Bridget Fonda is going to be a huge, huge star. The chemistry is great. And then, of course, the monster itself, giant crocs. Giant Crocs. One of the things that's cool about this is, yeah, it was over the top, but not so over the top that you didn't think, is it possible this one might be able to actually happen? Which I think adds another element to it. The script is fantastic. There's no extra in it. You know, right? It's all, as they say, well, I won't say what they say. I don't think YouTube would let me, but yeah, they've cut away all the fat, right? You've just got the meat in this one. The creature effects, I think, still hold up extremely well. It's funny, it's suspenseful. Definitely gets a recommendation from me as a summer horror movie. And then another one I know that you'll know of as well, but I had to add this because, come on, I know what you did last summer. It is a paint by numbers slasher flick, but it's done really, really well with a great young cast, right? Ryan Phillippe, Freddie Prinze Jr., Jennifer Love Hewitt, Sarah Michelle Gellar. I mean, that is a great. We're talking about 97, right? That is a great young cast. And I also wanted to give this some love because when we talk about those late 90s, early 2s slashers, Scream gets all the love, Scream gets all of the attention, but I think I Know What You Did Last Summer deserves just as much. I get that it lived in Scream's shadow, and some people were like, "Oh, it's sort of a copycat." I don't think it is. I think it's definitely as now when you watch it now and you've watched a lot of movies since, maybe it doesn't have once you've seen a movie, and they all the suspense might not be there anymore, but it's very stylish. It's very well done. I think it's a highly entertaining horror flick. I don't think there's anything in it that's so bad you're like, "Oh, I gotta skip this," right? It's got some great chase scenes. Sarah Michelle Gellar, of course, coming into her own as Buffy at the time, had a fantastic chase scene in this movie, which is that alone is worth watching. It's definitely a great summer watch. We all know how this one starts, right? You've got the kids out in the drive and you've got the accident, and then they want to cover it up. And the cover up didn't go so well. And now it becomes a revenge flick. And the atmosphere is great. You've got this cool coastal setting, you've got foggy docks, uh, you've got a maybe not the scariest costume for a slasher, but it fits in to this coastal town, which allows someone to, move around pretty well. So anyway, it's definitely one worth watching as well if you haven't seen it or it's been a long time. Another one, kind of from the same era, but a little later, and oddly enough, involves Buffy the Vampire Slayer cast member Elijah Dushku, and that is Wrong Turn, which came out in 2020 of 2023. 20, I'll get it, folks. 2003. If you have not seen this, I highly recommend you do. If you haven't seen it in a while, it is well worth watching. Now, this there's some uncomfortable stuff in this. Like, I think Wrong Turn was done very well in the vein of movies like The Hills Have Eyes, okay? It is definitely worth a watch. It is a lean, intense survival horror flick, and I don't think it gets the recognition it deserves, which is why it's on this list. Now we've got a group of I'm gonna say I think college age, right? I'm gonna say early 20s, maybe late teens, but I'm gonna say early 20s, and they find themselves stranded deep in the forest in West Virginia. Probably not a place you want to be. Don't take detours. Don't take detours. And of course, it starts out as an inconvenience and it quickly turns into something else, a desperate fight for survival. As they discover they're not exactly alone out here in the wilderness. Now, that setting is one of its biggest strengths, right? We've got dense forests, we've got abandoned cabins, steep mountain trails, lots of isolation. There is no civilization anywhere around for these young people to seek refuge. And it does a great job of giving you that atmosphere of being completely cut off from help, completely cut off from help. Every decision, it has to happen quickly. It has to happen under stressful circumstances, and you have no idea if it's the right one. And every decision seems more and more dangerous as we move on. If you ever taken a road trip and you've taken it through the back country, you've probably had those thoughts of like, this is not a good place to get stranded. Wrong Turn is going to definitely have you thinking maybe we never take the scenic route. And as I mentioned, Eliza Dushku, right off of, well, I guess it was filming before the end because I think Buffy ended in 2003, which is when this came out. Eliza Dushku was fantastic. I love her. I think I really wish she had I mean, I know she's worked and done a lot, but I really wish she had a much bigger career than she did because I think she's fantastic. Um, her character's great. For those of you who like to scream now about, um, screaming misogyny whenever a movie with a female lead doesn't do well, strong women and all that. Elijah Dushku in Wrong Turn is a great example of what men will tune in to see. She is a woman in every sense of the way, right? The positives and negatives, just like men have them. She's not a Mary Sue, but she is strong. She finds strength she didn't know she has. She's resourceful. She's a fighter. She's a survivor. She is fantastic in this movie. I cannot say enough about her. The pacing is great as well. Definitely check out Wrong Turn. We are going to stay in that same vibe with the remake as someone who screams a lot about remakes. This one I thought was quite good. I don't know how many other people are going to enjoy this recommendation. I don't think it was seen as a great flick at the time, partly maybe because of one of the cast members, but that is House of Wax in 2005. And yes, it had Paris Hilton in the cast. So unfortunately, when it was released, it got a lot of attention for other things. And I think people overlook it's just an entertaining horror flick. Yeah, it's just got a group of friends. Again, road trip. They make an unexpected stop. It's a nearly abandoned town. Uh, kind of creepy. Seems like a simple, quick detour. Definitely turns into something else. Absolute nightmare as they discover the town's very unsettling secret. Classic horror setup, folks. And the movie executes it with confidence. There's a lot of style. Alicia Cuthbert, again, I mentioned with Wrong Turn. Alicia Cuthbert is another one of mine from the early twos. Chef's Kiss, again, someone else I wish could have had a bigger career. I'm just saying, I like her, okay? I thought she was great in this. The vibe of the town is great, like the deserted streets, the eerie buildings, and obviously the wax museum. But Alicia Cuthbert does a great job in this, and it's a horror movie, folks. But she brings a lot of energy to it. She brings a believability to it. I think the movie does a great job of suspense, memorable set pieces, maybe some jump scares. There are definitely a few really good scenes in this as well. So if you have not seen it or you haven't seen it in a while, check it out. And another one. Now we're going to go, man, we've done this a few times. We did this with Summer of '84, 2015, but we're going to go all the way back to the '80s with The Final Girls. This is another fun horror movie. If you are a fan of classic 1980s horror slashers, The Final Girls will be enjoyable for you if you haven't seen it. It's creative. I think it's very underrated. One of the most underrated horror films of the last decade. Takes that very familiar horror formula, but there's a fresh spin on it, right? And it's funny, it's heartfelt, there's emotion in it as well. And yeah, you still get some of that nasty horror. Now, the setup is we have a group of friends. One of them, one of the young ladies' mother had passed in a car accident that I believe they were both in, if I remember correctly. And her mother had been an actress and she was in a horror movie. And guess what? This group of friends is watching that horror movie and they end up in the movie. Yes, they end up in the '80s slasher with the characters who are the characters, right? So her mother is in it, but her mother is the character in the film. So now you have these people who are in it who have seen this film, who knows what's going on, but all the characters in it are being the characters. And you've got a lot of the stereotypes of the type of characters you got in '80s slashers, and they want to make those same decisions and do those same things. And so you've got this push pull between the characters, the who know what's going on and the characters in the film. And it's a really interesting, entertaining, like I said, it does get emotional, and which I think kind of helps separate it. And it gives it that interesting dynamic where you have this girl, this young woman who's getting this time with her mother that she, of course, never thought she would get because her mother has passed, but her mother isn't really her mother either. And you've got to do it all within this '80s slasher horror movie that you know is happening, but these characters don't, and they're stuck within who they are. So anyway, I think this does a great job of capturing the look and feel of an '80s horror summer camp horror slasher film. Definitely worth checking out if you haven't seen it, definitely worth revisiting if you have. And now we're going to go a little tougher, a little rougher, all the way back to 1977 with The Hills Have Eyes. This one's not for everyone, right? I get it. A lot of differences in the horror genre in terms of what people will watch. This might not be for you. We've just gone over a few what I guess I would call lighter entries. This is definitely a darker turn. This is a true horror classic. The Hills Have Eyes. Wes Craven, for those of you that didn't know, I think Wes is associated with a lot of other movies like A Nightmare on Elm Street or Scream. But yeah, Wes Craven did The Hills Have Eyes, and it was originally given an X rating and had to be edited into an R. This is hardcore Wes Craven. Uh, Again, road trip thing type of thing, right? We got a family traveling through the desert. Should have been an ordinary road trip. They become stranded in the middle of nowhere, and they realize, kind of like in Wrong Turn, that they're not as alone out there as they thought. And what follows a brutal fight for survival, one of the most unforgettable settings imaginable. It is relentless. When this movie kicks off, when it gets going, it is relentless. The atmosphere is relentless. This vast desert landscape looks both beautiful, and now that you know what's going on and what's behind it, terrifying as well. No crowded beaches, no cabins, no helpful neighbors. It's just endless miles, open wilderness. Escape seems impossible. Perfect example how an isolated summer setting can be an absolute nightmare. If you are familiar with Wes from things like A Nightmare on Elm Street and Scream, and you can stomach something like The Hills Have Eyes, definitely worth checking out. Now we're gonna stay kind of in the era, but 1981, here's one a lot of people probably haven't heard about, and that is Just Before Dawn. So again, If you are a fan of classic slasher films, this one is for you. This is a hidden gem. This got overshadowed, of course, by Friday the 13th or even The Burning, but it is well worth a watch if you have not seen it. I think, your harder core horror fans know this one. They've seen it. Definitely, I think one of the most overlooked, maybe most underrated, at least slashers of that time period. Again, a group of young friends who make the mistake of heading into the mountains for a weekend camping trip. They just want to enjoy the great outdoors. Nothing wrong with that, right? Nothing ever goes wrong when a group of friends go into a situation like this. But hey, it's a slasher movie. So as you can imagine, we have a terrifying turn. The atmosphere in this film is fantastic. It is not an over the top gore fest, right? It is not over the top in terms of its attacks. Uh, it takes its time. It's a little bit of a slow burn. It takes time building suspense. You've got the forest, right? The rivers, the mountain trails, and that sort of thing. That just it's a vibe. It is an atmosphere. It creates this beautiful but kind of creepy and unsettling setting, right? It captures that isolated feeling where depending on your mindset, and it may flip when your mind wanders, right? Just seems so peaceful, so relaxing. You're like, I'm so glad to get out here. And then if you let certain thoughts get into your head, you're looking around like, what am I doing out here? Right. And then when you are aware, every single sound in the woods, of course, as we know from our imagination, from movies we may have watched, that every single sound could spell big, big trouble. But the director does a fantastic job of letting the tension simmer. It's kind of like almost sort of a dreamlike quality to some of it, which makes the horror, I think, even a lot more effective. But as I mentioned earlier, it's definitely a slower burn than a lot of flashers. But if you have not seen Just Before Dawn, I highly recommend checking it out. And finally, and I'm sorry, I just realized I didn't even give you numbers as we went along. But yeah, we are at number 10. This one's a little different, but I really enjoyed it. Again, it's a lot of atmosphere in this one as well, and that is Triangle from 2009. And I think it's an underrated psychological horror flick, one of the better ones of the last 20 years or so. Doesn't get mentioned all that often, but if you've never seen it, I definitely highly recommend going into it knowing as little as possible. So I'm going to try to tell you as little as possible. But again, story following a group of friends. It should be a relaxing day. But after an unexpected disaster at sea, because they went out on a yacht, they were enjoying the day on a yacht. I guess I back up and mention that first. But they take refuge aboard a massive ocean liner. It appears to be completely abandoned, right? Kind of creepy. But hey, things aren't nearly as simple as they first seem. And what begins as a basic survival story becomes something much darker, much stranger, far more unsettling than simply a survival at sea story. It blends psychological horror with genuine suspense as well. Although it's not relying constantly on jump scares, right? It's more of a slow burn again, slowly builds a feeling that something is deeply wrong here. Something is just, it's not right. And the film explores a lot of these themes, identity, fate, guilt, and it kind of creates a mystery as to what is actually happening, which is very disturbing, unsettling, but also rewarding as you kind of piece it all together. Oddly enough, it's a horror movie that makes full use of sort of a bright sunlit setting as well, which how often do you get that in horror? Again, I don't want to give too much away about this one, but it's for me, it's one of those horror movies that is enjoyable on a second viewing or a third viewing or a fourth viewing, depending on how much of a horror fan you truly, truly are. But I'm gonna leave it there. Those are my I won't even say top 10. Okay. But I think 10 great horror movies for the summer. If you want a summer horror movie list of movies to watch, this is the one. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe. I will talk to you later.